I can tell you three things to help you make your decision. Number one, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow and you will fully regain your health. Now, this was huge. I was so relieved to hear that, and I could feel some weight of the world coming off my shoulders at that point. Number two, he continued, your baby will be born healthy. Again, this is huge, particularly for someone who's gone through infertility, who's lost two pregnancies to ectopics, and just with what had been going on with the crisis in this pregnancy. And I had the feeling that the baby was my last opportunity to have another child. So this was just huge for me. So now I'm starting to teeter. Oh my goodness, am I meant to go back? Should I be going back? And then number three was the kicker. And Michael told me, if you do choose to go back, your life will be very difficult, likely for many years, because you're not on your life path. You're not living your purpose.
Welcome, Wendy. Thank you so much for joining us on Life, Death, and Beyond, the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Laura.
You're welcome. Can you share a little bit about your background and then just take us through the near-death experience?
Absolutely. So my background is I am a past life energy healer, and I help people release pain, anxiety, depression, any of that stuck energy that's not serving them so that they can just feel healthier, feel happier, and just enjoy life more.
With your near-death experience, how did that get all started?
Yes, how that started, it was August of 1997. I was newly pregnant, and my husband and I were very excited because there had been years of infertility, and we did have a toddler at the time. And on the day of the first near-death experience, because there were actually two a few days apart in the same week, and on the day of the first one, I was working at home. I was alone in the house, and Laura, I just didn't feel right. And I just couldn't settle down. I couldn't focus. And all of a sudden, I had this sense of impending doom, which I've never had before. And it's a very, very specific feeling. So I ran to the bathroom just thinking, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know if I'm going to be sick. I don't understand what's happening. And once I got in the bathroom, I looked down in surprise at my abdomen because it felt like someone had literally stuck a knife in me. There was so much pain, and I remember calling out to God for help, and I passed out. I was unconscious on the floor. And the only reason I came to was there was this insistent male voice, and he just kept saying, Wendy, Wendy, you've got to wake up now or you're going to go home. And I knew he meant I was going to die if I didn't get help. So as I open my eyes and look around me, I'm still laying on my side. I'm just curled up in a fetal position because it was so much pain. And the only thing I could think of as I went down was, I think an organ just burst. And that did turn out to be true. And my bathroom was just filled with so much light, and I could see four or five angels. There was just so much love and compassion and wisdom coming from them as he was saying this to me. So I'm trying to take this all in because this was just mind blowing, and it was so beautiful, and it took angels out of the possibility category and something gorgeous in art or on a Christmas card into absolutely, they are real and they are all around us and they want to help. And my reply to him when he kept repeating, you've got to call for help now, was because again, this was 1997. And when he said, you need to call for help, I said, I understand, but I can't walk. I can't get to the phone. Because at that time I didn't have, the cell phone glued in the back pocket or in our hand like we so often have now. And what he responded was, and it was just multi-layered, was you just need to be willing to try. And I think he was referring not only to us putting in the effort, but this is a free will planet, and we've just, he was being respectful of my free will. So I managed to get up on my hands and knees, which was, it took everything I had. And at that point, my belief system again is just being blown wide open, because it's like I was gently flown or moved the short distance from the bathroom to the landline that was on my nightstand next to the bed. So I reached up, I'm trying to find the phone, and I called my husband at work because I knew he was only 5 minutes away from home. Miracles continued. I was just being so assisted that day. I had never reached him immediately at work, but I did get him right away, and I give him a lot of credit because all I said was, I need you to drive me to the doctor now. Can you take me to the doctor now? And he just said, on my way. And I could hear the phone slam down, and I knew he'd be home in 3 minutes. So I had just enough time to call the OB office, tell them what was happening. And I was early in the pregnancy. I was 10 weeks. So I had had just one visit that had confirmed I was indeed pregnant, and that it was a uterine pregnancy, because I'd had two ectopic pregnancies also, as well as the infertility. And what the doctor office told me was, okay, that's great. Your husband's on his way. He can get you faster than 911 at this point. We will be waiting for you curbside with a wheelchair. Don't even park when you get here. Just we're gonna be waiting for you because we don't want you walking. So that's exactly what happened. They whisked me up to their office into the ultrasound room, and my OB was located right at the hospital, which I think was also very important for me and very fortunate for me. So they try and do the ultrasound study, but the ultrasonographer, you just can't see anything on the screen. And I'd had ultrasounds before, and they're amazing how much detail you can see. And I said to her, is your machine working? Is that on? I don't understand. Because all I could see was like a little bit of like black wavy. And her response was, I'm going to get the doctor now. So she returned very quickly with a physician, as well as with a nurse midwife, and we're all like crammed in this tiny room. And the doctor adjusted the ultrasound machine and was looking, and he was able to tell me immediately what was going on. Very kind, but just to the point. And he said, Wendy, you've got a major abdominal bleed. That's what you're seeing on the screen is just blood loss. This blood should not all be there, and it's just obscuring our view of any of your organs. So we need to admit you to the hospital right now. So someone ran and got a stretcher because they didn't even want me sitting up in the wheelchair with this blood loss, and whisked me over and just transferred me immediately into a hospital bed. So there just was a lot going on. The doctor's there. There's several nurses there. My husband is there, and someone asked me if I knew my blood type, and I said yes. I think everyone should know their blood type. And I told her, and she went out to make the call. This was happening in Seattle. So she called the Puget Sound Blood Center. It's a regional blood bank in Seattle to not be wasting this precious resource. And nowadays, you can, on your phone for free, you can download an app called ICE in case of emergency, and put in your blood type and any other important information. And then if you're ever in an emergency situation, the medics will be able to get to it. They don't need to know your phone passcode, and they can see what's in there. So the nurse comes back in a few minutes later, not looking happy, and to our surprise says, we can't get any blood for her at this point. We don't have any A negative at the blood bank. And that was just really surprising. And what she had been told was there had been a major train collision in Seattle a few days earlier, so it had temporarily wiped out their supply of that. So they were able to get blood from me about 6 or 8 hours later. because obviously it was important to transfuse and to start trying to replace the blood that I was losing. And we still didn't know the cause of that. So we chose to not rush into surgery. No one wants to rush into surgery on a pregnant woman. And again, right at the beginning, we didn't have blood for me. There was some brief discussion of should I be transferred downtown, but we all agreed no, because I worked in healthcare, so I knew more about my local community hospital where I was than most people would. And I knew they did about 5,000 births a year, with the implication being they were very well prepared for OB emergencies like this too. So we agreed I was going to stay right where I was. I couldn't even get out of bed to go to the bathroom. It was just, needed to be prone, getting transfused, trying to get this bleeding to stop. Because the body's a miracle and it's just healing itself all the time if we work with it and if we let it. We're making healthy choices and getting sufficient sleep when so much of that healing happens, etc. So we did watch and wait for several days. And of course, I'm being very closely attended to. And one of the important measures that was being taken was they were following my hematocrit really closely. And on the third day, my physician said to me, Wendy, we've got to do surgery because you are officially bleeding out based on your hematocrit. And you can see how much blood we're going through. And you just lose it faster than we can transfuse it. So I agreed to the surgery, which was a hard thing to do because again, pregnant, but here I am with first trimester and all these transfusions, as well as I'm on morphine because I'm just in so much pain and I didn't want to be taking painkillers like that, but I didn't have a choice. And I could feel myself, Laura, during those couple of days, just walking between worlds. It was very hard um, to to focus, to be there in my body because there just was so much going on that was really, really challenging. So once I had agreed to the surgery, and I knew it was going to be the next morning, it was going to be my own OBGYN, which I was very happy about because I knew he was an excellent surgeon. I'd had both my ectopic pregnancy surgeries with him and one of his partners. And I was just trying to relax. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon. I just had my dinner. Get that so early in the hospital. I'm alone in my room, and I was just trying to really visualize, feel, imagine the best possible outcome the next day with the surgery. And Laura, the moment I had that thought, I just popped right out of my body and left my body. And I remember looking back over my shoulder and seeing my body in the hospital bed. And it took me a minute to work out that I was back in pure soul form because I already felt great. And my sense of humor was returning. I wasn't in pain anymore. And I started critiquing myself in the bed. And it's like, oh, wow, look at her. She really is bleeding out. She's whiter than the sheet. She looks like a ghost. And look at her hair, because of course there's been no comb or brush or mirror for days. She looks like the wild woman of Borneo. Her hair's just crazy. And then it's like, wait a minute, why am I referring to myself in the third person? And that made me realize that I was in pure soul form and our soul is eternal. And that was simply my body in the bed. Yes, very important, of course, because that's the housing that we choose for whatever lifetime we choose a life form. Uh, but I was so much more interested in the white light because I could see the white light of home clearly. It was coming through the ceiling of the hospital room and it was in a triangle and it was just so compelling. It had this magnetic draw to it. So I take one more look at myself in the hospital bed, my body as Wendy, and go, she's fine. not fine at all. But that was just that eternal soul perspective. And I just start following the white light. So I go out and up, and I'm just getting this broader and broader view because I'm out of the hospital and I'm going up further and further, faster and faster, getting that like astronaut overview. Just thinking, oh, Earth's so beautiful. We just gotta take better care of her. And then all of a sudden, I stutter to a stop. If you've ever run out of gas in a car, that terrible feeling when you're running out of gas. And I just stopped. I had no more energy. And my first thought was, oh, please don't make me walk through that long tunnel to get home. I'm not going to make it. I need help. And the minute I had that thought, this gorgeous escalator dropped in for me. It's pristine. There's no one else on it. And I know it's just for me. And I know this is my ride home. So I plopped myself onto the escalator so gratefully. And I'm hanging over the right handrail. And that made me realize I knew my body should have been like an orb, like a big orb, like the size of a beach ball, and just very sparky. And instead, I'm like a flat tire because I just was so depleted of life force of chi at that time. So I just kind of hang on, and I get this beautiful ride up to the light. And at the top of it, obviously, they knew I was coming because there's this gorgeous welcoming committee. My whole soul family was there. There were about 20 of them, and I could see the same 4 or 5 angels that had been in my bathroom were behind them. So the minute I get home, heaven, the light, whatever the right term is for your belief system, everyone just gathered me in this huge hug. And I just basked in it because it was unconditional love. And it just felt so amazing. I could have stayed there forever. Uh, but what happened next was the same angel that had spoken to me in my bathroom spoke. And the minute he said a word, I knew exactly who he was. And it was Archangel Michael. And he said, welcome home. You made it. We're so glad you're here. You've done nothing wrong. You are welcome to stay. But if you're going to go back, you're going to need to decide quickly. So he kind of motioned everyone to step back, from this amazing hug and that download of love that I obviously needed, because I believe in near-death experiences, we're creating and co-creating exactly what we need. And it's also a mid-course correction for our life if that is needed. So he continues, and what Michael said next was, I can tell you 3 things to help you make your decision. Number 1, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow and you will fully regain your health. Now, this was huge. I was so relieved to hear that, and I could feel some weight of the world coming off my shoulders at that point. Number 2, he continued, your baby will be born healthy. Again, this is huge, particularly for someone who's gone through infertility, who's lost 2 pregnancies to ectopics, and just with what had been going on with the crisis in this pregnancy. And I had the feeling that the baby was my last opportunity to have another child. So this was just huge for me. So now I'm starting to teeter. Oh my goodness, am I meant to go back? Should I be going back? And then number 3 was the kicker. And Michael told me, if you do choose to go back, your life will be very difficult, likely for many years, because you're not on your life path. You're not living your purpose. Laura, I felt terrible. I was so just chagrined. I mean, no one wants to hear they're not living their purpose. So of course I asked him, well, what's my purpose? What should I be doing? What should I change? What should I be doing? What should I not be doing? And he just gently shook his head. So I knew he wasn't going to tell me anything else. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm with my soul group. I'm with the souls that know me the best, that I've incarnated with many times. So let me just look for the chatty Cathy in the group. So I start going around to every one of them and like, can you tell me? Do you know anything about my purpose? We must have planned some of this together. Come on, give a girl some information here. And no one would share anything with me because they weren't meant to, but it took me a moment to catch on to that. So my energy is just plummeting. And I'm like, how can I go back? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not living my purpose. How can I go back to this muddled mess was the way it was feeling in that moment. So everyone, because of course there's just telepathy at home and everyone knows exactly how um, you're feeling and how everyone is feeling, they start being really just silly and funny when I go to the next person to ask them. So they put like duct tape over their mouth, but in a really humorous way. Or someone just like the lock and key and like throws away the key. So I just start laughing. And the moment I do that, it's just one of our best coping. I mean, humor is just one of our best coping mechanisms, and my energy starts to come back again, and my self-confidence starts to come back again. And I realize they're simply just not meant to tell me, and that's just the way it is. I'm going to need to figure it out for myself. So, because I was 36, I still had time. We always have time. And we also can be on our path more than we know. It's just that left brain, human personality, or ego that can be just like frustrated and trying to shake the tree too hard. What's my purpose? What's my purpose? Am I doing it right? And we can just, need to relax and let go of that. So Michael said to me at that point, what do you want to do? And the second he asks me that, all I could see was our adorable toddler's face. And Tara had this brown curly hair when she was little and these huge hazel eyes. And it wasn't like seeing her face the normal size, Laura. It filled my world. It was bigger than an IMAX screen. And so it was easy. I knew what to do. And I told Michael, I want to go back for my children because I knew I was going to have the second baby. And that was my reply to him. And I said, put me back in, coach. I'm ready to play. Meaning I was going to do my very best to engage with life at a deeper level and understand my purpose and live my purpose. So everyone at that point goes into cheerleader mode and they're like, oh, you're so brave, you can do it. And they give me one more big hug from my soul family. And that time I could feel, in addition to the unconditional love, which was a reminder we need to give that to ourselves as well as to others around us, because all too often we've got judgment attached to it and it's conditional. And that's not how we're meant to live. So it just was a great reminder of that. So everyone's giving me this big hug, and I'm getting this download of energy. And I could just feel that chi life force that I so needed coming back in, and my chakras starting to fill back in a little bit in preparation for that surgery the next day. So at that point, again, Michael has to kind of, just motion to everyone to back up because it's time for me to go. And he just turns me around, and I go back down on the escalator, just waving at everyone and thanking them, and they're continuing to cheerlead for me. And when I get back into the hospital room, it's easy as it can be. I just go right into my body slowly and gently, and my soul, my higher self, re-enters my body. Had two immediate thoughts at that point, and one was, ugh, why is she so little? I was annoyed by being smaller, by being 5'2". But then I just told myself, well, you chose the body. It's for good reason. You just need to adjust again. But I think what was happening, Laura, was our higher self has so much energy, and we incarnate with just such a small percentage of it. So it just was, getting used to the housing again of the physical body. And my second thought was, the pain, because I was in so much pain, not only in my abdomen, because we still at that point didn't know what was going on, but also my left wrist from the IV, because the IV was just cranked up all. Excuse me, not the IV, yes, the IV for the transfusion, for the blood transfusions. So I did have these successful surgery the next day. They used ultrasound guidance to uh, do their best to be able to stay away from the fetus. Again, very fortunate. It was only 10 weeks. Of course, the fetus is just beyond tiny at that point. And the OB was able to tell me that the fetus was tucked like down in the left lower corner of my uterus. And he said, what we actually found was your fundus had ruptured, which is the aorta at the top of the uterus. So that was what had happened, and why I lost so much blood so quickly, because it was an aorta, and was just so fortunate with everything that occurred after that to have survived that. And my physician estimated, based on how much transfusing they had to do, that I had lost 3/4 of my blood supply during that week in the hospital. So successful surgery, recover in the hospital for a couple of days, and go home with orders to be on strict bed rest for a couple of weeks. I couldn't have done anything else if I tried, because I was just weak as a kitten at that point. And so recover at home, go back to work. Well, I should probably stop at this time. Do you have, at this point, do you have questions, Laura? Is that making sense?
Yep, that's making sense. So I did have a couple questions. And so like when you're out of the body, you kind of explained it a little bit. Like we are kind of once we leave the body, we become more like an energy form, orbs. And so did you have, I guess, were you still attached to the body because you were feeling not very energetically at the time as you're transitioning to the other side? Is that why you kind of felt like you didn't have
My
the energy?
my belief is that there's a silver cord that attaches our higher self, our soul, to the body. And while that silver cord is still attached between the body, even if the soul is temporarily out of the body, like I was, um, it's still possible to return. I believe that we astral travel regularly at night, when we dream, when we meditate. And that's just kind of like our part of our homing beacon of how we travel and come back to the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. I had a near-death experience, but I never seen the cord, and I know people talk about it, but I never was able to see it. And I had out-of-body experiences where I went into a light orb, but even then, I didn't see the cord. So I don't really. I understand because of the people who talk about it, but I didn't necessarily have that as my experience. But it's interesting. I guess there's a way to bring us back to the body at some point somehow, and that may just be
Right.
it.
I
Mm-hmm.
didn't physically see it. I'm not especially clairvoyant. I'm very clairaudient, and I
Mm-hmm.
also feel, sense, know. And when I first got to the top of the escalator and everyone gave me that hug, I also later realized, because it just takes years to unpack near death experiences like this and to acclimate, because your worldview is just so different. I didn't have the words to language this for 20 years. I just didn't share it until then, because it hadn't all integrated, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to the top of the escalator, part of why everyone stopped me with that amazing hug was I couldn't have gone further. I think I would have been too far. I would have been too far back up with the light, and I wouldn't have been able to go back to the body. So I think it was like you can get to a certain point, and then you're just at the limit of that. That was how it felt to me.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that because they stopped me too at a certain point and they were like, no. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. And I know some people will say, well, I don't have any choice in coming back, or I do have choice. Uh, I understand and I believe that we are all also asked. We're not forced to come back. I believe that our guides give us the best information so we can make the right decision. I don't necessarily feel
Exactly.
like we're forced.
I knew next to nothing about near-death experiences or about any of the spiritual realm at the time I had the near-death experience consciously in my human persona now as Wendy, as who I was as a 36-year-old. So I didn't know about the tunnel. So it was just so interesting that this soul level knowledge started coming back at that time. And it also was fascinating to see my soul group because everyone looked exactly the same. It's just these beautiful big beach balls with all this sparky energy within them, like a little lightning storm. Everyone looks exactly the same, but you just know who they are. But it was that reminder too that uh, these prejudices and these biases and these inhumanity of man to man because of race and gender, it doesn't make any sense at all because we're all exactly the same. All the souls were just the same. But
Mm.
yet I did recognize them because I knew who was up front. All four grandparents were there, which was wonderful. I knew my mom's parents this lifetime very well. We'd actually lived with them for several years and I was very close with them. So that didn't surprise me. Seeing my dad's parents there was amazing because I never met them in this lifetime. They died before I was born. But I knew exactly who they were, and I knew we'd had other lifetimes together. And then the one that took me a little bit of time to work out was one of my best friends in this lifetime was there front and center welcoming me home. She's very much alive. So that made me realize that was her higher self. So
Mm.
when I hear people worrying about passing on and reincarnating and missing reunions. You never miss a reunion with loved ones because there's always, even if they've reincarnated again, even if you're on different timelines with that, it doesn't matter because that higher self, there's a portion, an important portion of that higher self energy at home. So I think I just learned so many things to let go of worrying about.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that I kind of draw from that part of the conversation up until that point is they didn't tell you your life purpose. Why do you feel like that is that they never tell us our life purpose? Is it for the purpose just to come across it or to remember? Or why do you feel like they don't want to give us that
I
information?
was I was 36 and I think it would have interfered with my growth, with my taking chances, with my stumbling about and learning from it because I simply wasn't ready. My life purpose came through and everything got very clear as a 49-year-old, but that's 13 years later. So it's just different for different people. But it's like if you're reading this gorgeous 800-page book and you're on page 200 of it when you have the near-death experience, why should you be told about page 800? It's just going to ruin the story.
Yeah,
It's
it's
going
like
to
spoiler alert.
it's going to change the outcome.
Hmm.
So we're not meant to know certain things. And I think just need to be respectful of that and let it go. But again, the ego can just be so worried about certain things and just be poking at it again and again and again.
Yeah, yeah. From now, time to time, I'm like, okay, am I on my path? Am I doing the right thing? I can hear that going off, and it's like, okay, trying to redirect that, part of
Right,
myself. So yeah,
right.
and just trust.
Exactly, exactly. We're meant to trust and just I think the fact that we're asking the right questions. Am I on my path? Please help me be on my path. Please help me, make the best, highest, and holiest decisions here. that sort of thing. And it's just like questioning, uh, is my ego in balance right now? Because we can't eradicate our ego. We're not meant to. It's got the important job of keeping us alive and,
Mm,
telling us if there truly is danger. But I think of the ego as being very underemployed nowadays. There's not a lot of saber-toothed tigers that are going to eat us. So it just, makes a job for itself unless we're managing it and just letting it know, everything's all right. I'm not going to die if I stand up in the front of the mic, in front of the room and hold a microphone and do a little bit of public speaking. I'm not going to die because that's one of the top, fears is that just that fear of being, it's not so much the public speaking, but of just not being understood and, being cast out from the tribe because not being understood, being jeered at, ridiculed, whatever, because that used to mean death,
hmm
most likely, if you just could not survive within whatever community. So that fear of public speaking is a big one.
Yep, I have that. That comes up for me. And but I also know some of my past life history, so
Right.
it makes sense. But
And how beautiful that you have a podcast because obviously just, working through that and doing what we need to do.
yeah,
I had it too, and same thing. It was past life energy, um, specific to speaking about spirituality and energy and, these sorts of very intriguing, interesting, the most important topics.
right. Yeah, very much so. Because in the past, and for a lot of people, it was frowned upon. You got punished or something,
Exactly.
tortured, or whatever the case may be,
Exactly.
burned alive at the stake. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, no.
Exactly. Or your family was threatened, which can be even more terrifying to us. So
hmm
yes, so just having to let go of that is a big deal, and being able to heal and release that past energy that doesn't serve us anymore.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, coming back into the body, can you continue on into what happened after that?
Yes. So I recuperate at home, because as I said, coming back into the body was easy once I made those two adjustments to my size and to just dealing with the fact that I was going to be in pain until the next morning when I had the surgery, and then just recuperating. So I went back to work in a job I loved. I went part-time at first, and then back to full time. I was the marketing director for a busy ambulatory surgery center, and my my colleagues, my coworkers would just see me in the hall, and I had been out for a long time at this point, so people didn't really know what had happened, and I just couldn't answer, in these brief hallway or quick lunch. I just couldn't. I learned to just say, thanks for your concern. I'm so glad to be back. I held on to the pregnancy, and I just kind of left it at that because I just didn't have languaging. I purposefully chose, again, it was 1997. And I just didn't think the medical community was ready to have the conversation about these incredible positive encounters I'd had on the other side. I didn't choose to share it there. And Laura, the irony of that, because I lived in Seattle, which is where the original founding chapter, 40 plus years old, of IANS, the
Mm,
International Association of Near-Death Studies, started. But I didn't know about that group. So evidently I wasn't meant to find it because I could have gotten so much support there and just sorted things out. So evidently I was meant to work through it on my own. So I get back to work, and I then, in early November of 97, I get called into my boss's office on a Friday afternoon. I don't think a thing about it. We have a great relationship. I think, oh, he just wants to tell me something he needs done next week, or he wants to chat about, weekend plans. So, but the minute I started to step over the threshold into his office, and I saw his face, and he just looked like the weight of the world was on him. And I saw human resources sitting there looking equally sad. And they didn't have to say a word. I already knew I was laid off. And that was a really hard layoff because I'm pregnant, I'm still recovering my health, and I carried the health insurance for the entire family. So it was a rough one and not a great time to be looking for a new job, when you need to deliver, and it just was really rough. So, and I did think back to what the angels had said. Your life is going to likely be very difficult, probably for many years. So I, get home, tell my family. It's like, okay, I'll apply for unemployment. I know I've got great references. I'll start job searching, and we'll just tighten our belt, and we'll figure it out. And 1 week later, to the day, my husband was very late coming home from work. I was really worried because I couldn't reach him by phone, and I was concerned he'd had a car collision, or I didn't know what was going on, run out of gas. I didn't know what was going on because he was about 3 hours late. And when he came in the door, again, he didn't have to say a word. I could just see the weight of the world on him. And he said, let's sit down. We need to talk. And what he told me was he had just gone to payless paydays. His company had just gone out of business. He was one of 5 owners in a successful software company that employed about 100 people, and had been just doing really well. Or so I thought, and I didn't realize he hadn't been sharing things with me the previous few months, both because he was a very optimistic guy, and because he didn't want to worry me because I had so much on my plate with my health and trying to figure out the family finances. So I haven't heard anything after Payless Payday, and him explaining, because my brain just got stuck there. I'm like, those two words don't go together. And what he was trying to communicate was he was going to be working very long hours, 80-hour weeks, just trying to get the company sold, get everybody approved for unemployment. What were they going to do about their lease, their furnishings? What were they going to do next? So this was just devastating, and we also have no health insurance, remember, and I'm pregnant in this high-risk pregnancy. And we had purchased a minivan not long before. We had purchased a new, larger home. All this is predicated on our 2 jobs, and we now have 0 jobs. So again, it's November of 1997, and didn't know we were going into a pretty big worldwide recession at that point. So things were very, very challenging for months. I was trying to negotiate with lenders. We were about to lose our home. We were about to have our car repossessed. Things were really, really challenging. And thankfully, we were saved by Bank of Mom. And my mother just would loan us the shortfall each month, so we could keep keep the home and keep the car and just keep on going. And one of the changes, Laura, for me, was I continued to be able to hear and see the other side when it was important to do so. And I had been trying to find health insurance. I'd been trying to find financial resources for us, but we weren't qualifying for anything because we were wealthy, because we owned a home and 2 cars, which we're about to lose all of. But I was sitting in the pediatrician's office with our toddler one day, and all of a sudden I heard Michael say, "Look, look," just clear as day. And I could see the lamp on one of the end tables in the waiting room just really light up. And I could see there was a little brochure in front of it that I hadn't paid any attention to. So I knew I was meant to grab that information. So I ran over and, stuffed it in a diaper bag, went in and had my visit and read it when I got home. What it was an application for WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, which was part of the Medicaid services. And I did qualify because it was not based on, um, what you owned. It was just, it was going to provide health insurance for me to be able to deliver in the hospital, because that was absolutely necessary. And it also provided some healthy food for us that honestly we really needed. So that was an incredible blessing, and to just learn about it in that way was a big deal. And then our healthy baby girl is born March 13th, 1998, just like the angels had said. I mean, everything they said was absolutely accurate, and I would more and more understand the depth of it over the years. And I was approved for a very short hospital stay. It's now called a drive-through delivery. So I only was approved for a 24-hour stay, and that's including the labor. So it's just very, very quick. Had the baby the next morning, out the door. And I'm at home. I was by myself in our primary bedroom, nursing our newborn, and just feeling so grateful, as does anyone, but particularly with what I had gone through in that pregnancy. It was just such a big deal to be seeing that healthy baby girl. And Archangel Michael just came in at that moment, and he said, to me, it just sounded very conversational. Your contract with your husband is complete. I was so shocked. I almost dropped the baby, because it was just like, what do you mean? And then I thought, don't jump to conclusions. Ask him more. Maybe he's not saying what I think he's saying. And I asked him, are you saying my marriage is over, that the contract is complete? Is that what you're saying? And he just nodded, and then he left. So I am just flabbergasted. But Laura, I knew in my bones it was true. And I also knew we've got the choice. When contracts end, we can choose to still stay, but we won't be progressing in the same way. But I had to consider four people. I had to consider not just myself, I had to consider my husband and our two daughters. So what I chose was best for the family was we stayed together until the girls were both in school full time. We did our very best always to just be respectful, kind, loving parents, and as kind as we could to one another. But I was not happy in the marriage. It had been very challenging and difficult for me for a long time. And I later found what my soul contract was with my former husband. And it was to have a long-term marriage that we would both grow from considerably. That was all true. We were married for 15 years, together for 18. And for us to have beautiful children together. And I could see the plural underlined a couple of times. So Michael was just reminding me what my soul had planned and what the soul contract was. And I'm the one who planned it. We're not victims. These things are not being done to us, but there can be this disconnect at times between what our higher self, what our soul wants and has planned, and is, set into play and having play out, and what our human persona that, wants everything to be wonderful and easy and not challenging all the time. And that's not how life's meant to go. And that's not how we progress and grow. So that's what happened. And we did divorce, as I said, when they were 6 and 8. and went to a shared residential schedule, and that all went really well. And we just had to form a new normal. And my mother relocated out from Boston to Seattle, and she and I built a two-family home together. And she declared right from the beginning that she did not play favorites between me and my former husband, who she has a great relationship with to this day. She just said, I'm here to be team grandma. And what that means is, Wendy, if you need help, with the kids, I will help you. John, if you need help, I will help you. And I'm just here to help the family. And that was a really big deal. So that was what happened. Any questions about that?
Yeah, so it's very I don't want to say really normal or natural after we've had these, but it kind of is, because after we've had these spiritual awakenings and near-death experiences and we come back, our lives change. I know mine did. Everything fell away, and I understand a lot of the life lessons, what we plan, and I've experienced some of that. And so it becomes part of the understanding through our awakening. But like when we're not awake, we do get caught up in, the fighting over this house is mine or this is mine and my child. And instead of becoming to the realization, that it was agreed upon, and our contracts do end, unfortunately, because we do need that growth and the evolution. And certain people only come in at certain times in our lives to help us,
Mhm.
with certain things.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The next major stage was I rebuilt my life and just really focused on the girls and my career from the divorce for about 6 or 7 years. So, and everything was then going really well. When they were early teens, they were 12 and 14. And Laura, that's when I took another big breath and kind of looked around me, because my mom and I were doing great in the home. The girls were doing great with the shared residential schedule and back and forth between mom's house and dad's house, and a lot of time at grandmom's too. So everything was going well. And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, I would love to meet a great guy. And that had been not on my radar at all. And just the moment I had that thought, and it's like, well, where does anybody meet nowadays? I'm not meeting anybody through church, and work doesn't feel appropriate, and I'm not meeting through, friends of friends. So I asked a couple girlfriends who were actively dating or were newly engaged or remarrying or whatever. It's like, how'd you meet your great guy? And several people said, oh, Wendy, that's so easy. You just need to go on Match.com. And I said, Match dot what? I didn't know what they were saying to me, because I did not know what online dating was at that point. It was now 2010, and I had married back in 1989. So I just, I had no idea what they were talking about. So friends helped me put together a Match profile, and I connected with someone. And the minute, Laura, that I saw his profile and his face, it's like, I know him. Where do I know him from? I know this man. And I was reading through, and what he'd written was unusual, but yet, compared to any other profile I had read, yet it was like I was three sentences ahead, and I knew in my heart what it was going to say. And I didn't yet understand this was soul level recognition going on. And what the last sentence said was something to the effect of, any woman on a spiritual journey, particularly if you're interested in LBL, we have to meet. So I had no idea what LBL was. So I just asked my guides, help me find the right reference, because obviously acronyms can stand for multiple things. And immediately, what I found online was Michael Newton, who wrote Journey of Souls, who was an amazing past life regressionist and pioneered Life Between Lives as a 4-hour spiritual regression technique where you are in this deep state of lovely relaxation, clinical hypnotherapy, where you go back through your timeline, you go back to a past life simply to go on home. And then it's like there's 12 stops or so on the train that you're taking, and you meet with your council of elders. You learn about why you chose your life, why you're living this certain purpose. You learn all these things. It's very much like a near-death experience, minus the trauma that took you to the near-death experience. Like the uh, car collision or the heart attack or whatever took you to the NDE is missing from this. So I wrote to this match right away and said, "Oh my gosh, are you talking about Life Between Lives, Michael Newton, Journey of Souls? I just ordered the book from the library. It sounds fascinating," because this was before Kindle instant gratification. I would have been reading it in 3 seconds. So I was waiting for the book to come, and he wrote right back and said, "Yes, what do you know about it? What do you know about this type of healing and way of living, etc." And I said, "Next to nothing, but I'm fascinated. I can't wait for the book to get here." And I was reading all about the Newton Institute online. So we just start talking and talking, and he says, "I know you. Where do I know you from?" So we're trying to compare all the places we've lived and traveled and professional associations and places we might have met. It took us 3 weeks to sync up our schedules to be able to meet for lunch, and that was perfect. I think, again, spirit at work, because that gave time for the book to come and for me to devour it and to know that I wanted to go for a past life regression because I wanted to go for a life between lives. So I got to the restaurant first. I'm sitting in the foyer on a little bench waiting for him. And Laura, when he walked in, I literally thought there was an earthquake going on. And I could hear my guides saying, "Get ready, pay attention. We're here with you. Focus. Your life will never be the same." And everything just changed then as a 49-year-old, because through Match, which I think is hysterically funny, uh, I not only met a soulmate, but I met a primary soulmate, and I met the soulmate that had the soul contract to wake me up spiritually and get me on my life path. So Match does not advertise that as one of their benefits.
No, they don't. And I checked it out and I didn't really have great results with it. So,
It's changed a lot over the years as our society has changed. But again, this was back in 2010. And I think it's an example of our guides just meet us wherever we're at. Because I wasn't a member of a gym. I wasn't a member of like a social club where I was going to, run into him. But he was on Match. So they put, me on Match also. And I found his profile the moment I changed my distance to 10 miles to be up to 10 miles apart. Because I was living in such a dense population. I originally had it locked down at 5 miles. And then the minute I changed to 10, his came up, and all of these things happened that just were meant to happen. And it was in many ways, the most amazing ride of my life. It was the most um, incredibly uplifting, yet also became unhealthy and toxic and needed to end, and was very, very hard to end the relationship. So it was highest highs and lowest lows, because what we found over the 8 years that we knew each other was we found 21 shared lives together.
um,
So we were just working through we had been married 6 or 7 times. So to then be back in a relationship, I mean, some of the fun, crazy things that happened, we were just finishing each other's sentences. And if you ever meet someone and you're like, oh, there you are. Can't wait to catch up. And you're just finishing each other's sentence. There's an intensity, there's an excitement to it. That's a soulmate. Doesn't mean it's your romantic soulmate. It may be maybe a best friend, maybe an incredible mentor for you, whatever, but it's someone you've known before because the energy is it's very unique.
Mhm.
So, for instance, the first time he ever came to my home, we were cooking dinner, and I had a large kitchen, and yet I've never moved like that so well with anyone in the kitchen. And he just could open a cat. He already knew where everything was. And he was casually saying things like, oh, great, you've still got the pots here where you always put them. Oh, cool. I can find that spice immediately because you still alphabetized them. This was someone I'd been on like 4 dates with, but it was the past life energy.
Mhm.
Clearly shared homes and kitchens before. So things like that were a lot of fun and were just very, very enjoyable. But it needed to end because we had an irreconcilable difference, and just it needed to end. And my heart broke when he ended it. And that expression about your heart breaks to let more love in, it's true, but it's a very painful process, obviously, and we have to go through a lot of work to sort through the debris of that earthquake that has happened, because he ended the original romantic relationship that we were in, where we dated exclusively for 13 months, etc. And I was in love. And he ended it via email. And that
Mhm.
was particularly upsetting to me. But we then, over time, what happened, Laura? So I just thought, okay, I need to let this go. And we did have an amazing conversation face to face. We met a couple days later and talked for 3 or 4 hours, which interestingly, it like mirrored the very first luncheon had gone that long, because there just was so much to say. And I thought, okay, that's the end of it. We've got the closure, and I just need to go um, focus on putting myself back together in a healthier way, and just focus on my daughters and work and everything else in life. But what happened, Laura, because we still had so much we needed to do, we had a lot of soul contracts together that were very beneficial, um, and we hadn't fulfilled them. So we just started running into each other everywhere to the point it was ridiculous. And it wasn't like, we're back at like the same restaurant that we both liked the best. It was just new places we'd never met before. We run into each other at the movies, and it's a theater I'd never been to. It was just multiple places we're running into each other. And uh, I struggled with it. I really struggled with it at first. And then when I sat down and meditated and said, does this mean anything? My guides said, yes, you've got things to work on, and you need to, it would be beneficial if you could find a way to be spiritual seekers together. The romance is complete. It is not healthy for you. That is done. That needs to be done. But you are meant to do many things together. So I helped him get published, because he'd written a book, and that was one of our contracts. We were to help each other write. And I thought that was literal. It's part of why I was so heartbroken, because I thought, oh, now we're not going to write the books. We're not going to do the things we were meant to help humanity. We're not going to do, because we were told by multiple people, and it had come through in our own meditations, we were meant to be on radio and television together. He was the published writer. He was the one on television. I didn't have any of that background, or context. I had a crippling fear of public speaking, as we both touched on earlier, to the point where I would become physically ill. I would lose my voice. I mean, I could not do it, because of that past life fears coming up. But what we did do over that, next 7 years or so after we were no longer dating was we were spiritual seekers together, and helped each other with multiple books. He's actually the client in my very first book, Regression Healing One, with obviously his identity appropriately blinded, and he got to read it ahead, and it came up in a very unique way because I was so blocked. And it was one of my most important contracts and life purpose was to be an author and to be writing about spirituality, forgiveness, about past lives, about reincarnation. That was what I was born to do and wanted to do. And I just couldn't get it done. I was writing fiction, I was writing nonfiction, I was all over the place, couldn't get anything finished. And then he was having this important soulmate was having a lot of physical pain because he'd been a professional athlete. He had broken his neck, obviously had that surgically repaired, but was still having a lot of pain. And I had said to him, because I knew he'd been for several past life regressions and life between lives, I said, by that point, I was a past life regressionist and a healer. I said, would you like me to facilitate a session for you? Would that be comfortable? Or do we know each other too well? And he said, oh my gosh, that would be incredible. So I did a session for him. And before we did the session, several days before, my guide said to me, this is going to be the most difficult session of your life. You need to have two ways to record it because it's vital it be recorded. And one of the devices may blow out. So I had, at that point, I was recording because it was in person. I was recording back then with an MP3, a little recorder. And I also had a brand new iPhone, which I barely knew how to use, but I managed to find record on it and push record. Tested both of them at the beginning of the session. Both were working great, and they're both, right next to him on either side of him. And he had this incredible 4.5 hour session. And when I asked him at the end of it, how long do you think that was? He says, oh, that went longer than I thought. It was like 2 hours. It's like, look at the clock. And he was floored. It was 4.5 hours. And what the implication of that is, that meant 2.5 hours he'd been speaking as his higher self. He was speaking as his guides, etc. So that was just amazing. And I tried to transfer the MP3 recording to his computer form so he'd have it. And my heart about stopped, Laura, because there was nothing on the recording, even though
Wow.
just it was exactly like my guide said. So then I was like, oh no, please let it be on my phone. So I pushed the recording on my phone and we could hear it there clearly, and it was all there. But it says an iPhone is not meant to record a 4.5 hour session, but I didn't know that. But this is spirit at work, and it was all there. And so we can't figure out how to transfer it. And I don't know what to do because he needs the information. It's not for me, it's his session. I just want to transfer it and be done. And so I said, no problem. I'll go to Verizon tomorrow and they'll know how to do it. Some tech genius there will know how to do it. So I walked in and said, please don't play this out loud. I'm a therapist. We need to play this very quietly. I don't want people in the store hearing it. I just want this file transferred. And what do I do? Do I put it on a thumb drive? What do I do? And they were just looking at it in astonishment. And they said, this phone is not capable of storing 4.5 hours of information. I don't know what to tell you. And they tried and they got the manager and they're like, it's trapped on the phone. we can't help you. So sorry. Don't know how this is happening. So I leave and I can't give him my phone, obviously. So I thought about it for a few more days, asked my guides what to do, and they said, just type a simple transcript, quick and dirty transcript, and just ask him if that would be helpful and if he really needs it. And he was just so wanted it. And I said, okay, fine. And I knew that was going to be a big task, but I just sat down on a Saturday morning and just started typing out what I could hear from the session from my phone. And I worked on that. And then when I needed to, go to the bathroom, take a stretch break, when I came back and looked at it, Laura, and went through the beginning of what I had put in, to my surprise, it had a book title by Wendy Rose Williams. It had chapter headings. I had written myself a note about to put a forgiveness resource guide in and I'm looking at it going, I don't remember typing any of that. This is a book. This is a book. This is my first book. So
Right.
that was how we fulfilled the contract to help me write my first book. Um, so again, just spirit at work. And it's just amazing when we get out of our own way. Because I had so many blocks of, oh, well, I don't know how to get an agent or a publisher. I didn't really know what self-publishing was. And then it was, I don't know how to edit this. I don't know how to format it to go on. Back then it was CreateSpace before Kindle Direct Publishing.
Mhm.
To do that, I don't know how to get cover. And my guides were like, will you please learn to just ask for help and then be quiet and get out of the way and just stop fussing with it and just ask, what if, what if I know a cover designer? What if someone could format this for me? What if, and then it just all started happening and flowing once I stopped trying, because I was like left braining it to death. I was like hammering it to death of all the things I didn't know, but I wasn't opening to the energies in the beginning of just letting it flow because it was divinely guided. It was meant to happen. So of course, I almost immediately, once I changed how I was approaching it, I almost immediately find a lovely client of mine who, guess what, is a book cover illustrator. And she also formatted the book because she had published some of her own and helped other people. So just all the resources are there for us, both on the other side and in our day-to-day life. We just have to get out of our way.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's really important topic and key, is to get out of the way. Like when there's certain things that come up and whether it's my journey, I've moved here, I've gone here, and I was supposed to do this. Like I can literally hear this voice like creating and navigating the life. It's like it's almost like I can hear this other side of myself, like my
Do you,
soul or
do
my
you think
higher
it's,
self,
oh, I was gonna
choreographing,
ask that.
and we get to choose because I've heard myself, even though it's not me, my Laura self, agreeing to it. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, who's agreeing? Who's creating, who's manifesting all this, And it's just we have to follow, it's just trust and follow the
Exactly.
guidance. Yeah.
Exactly. Someone gave me a great analogy of once we've just put our request out to the universe to just let it be and then co-create with it because much of it's happening at that higher self level or you can consider it the subconscious or the unconscious level. But when you go into this lovely fine dining restaurant, your job is to give the order to the waiter or the waitress and then just trust they're going to prepare it. It's going to get sent off to the kitchen. They're going to prepare it exactly like we've asked for it. And if we just give that order and then second think and like barge into the kitchen and start bugging the chef, I mean, that is not going to go well.
Mm-mm. No.
But I think that's what we can do. We just need to make the request and then let it be, let it go. Because a more beautiful opportunity or option or version of that you can't even think of, in your human self can come up and it can be just so different. Another example of that, when I first relocated from Seattle to Spokane, my daughter and son-in-law had moved out here, and we were moving my mom out too. So the four of us were coming out here 3 years ago. And I knew I needed to rent a place because our house was on the market and I needed those funds to free up before I could make my next permanent move for housing. So I knew I needed to rent, but I kept looking for a furnished rental in the Spokane area that would allow a dog. Now that's kind of a tall order. And I kept looking and looking and I just couldn't find it. And my guides kept showing me, Laura, this wonderful little cabin on the water on a lake just over the border in Idaho. But I was being, which was plenty close and fine for, renting for 6 months because I wanted to be closer than that to live to my daughter and family. But I just kept blowing it off. It's like, no, I'm not going to Idaho. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know anybody in Idaho. I've never been to Idaho. No. And I just wasn't following the flow of the energy properly. But our guides are so patient with us. So, I'd leave it alone for a couple of days or a week or more. And then it's like, okay, I've really got to find the place to move to. And I'd look again and the same thing would come up. So I finally really took a deep breath and looked at the geography more closely. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm self-employed. I work from home. This is 45 minutes from my daughter, rather, than I want to live closer. But this is a temporary rental. And oh my gosh, this place is amazing. And it's on the water. And the host was delightful. So I contacted her and said, oh, I can be out in like 4 weekends from now to come look at it. And she was just very upfront. She said, Wendy, it'll be gone. I run 100% full occupancy, particularly in the summer. How about if we do a FaceTime and we can just walk through, and anything that you still have questions about, I can show you on FaceTime and then you can make your decision because otherwise you're going to miss it. I said, great, that sounds perfect. We did that and I rented it without ever seeing it. And it worked out fantastic.
Beautiful.
And it fulfilled a lifetime dream because I'd always wanted to live on the water. But then my ego would come in and say, oh, you won't be able to do that. That's too expensive for you. That's an ego remark. But I was perfectly capable of renting this fantastic place on the lake for 6 months. It worked out great. So, but that's just another example of it. Get out of our own way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And so now you are doing your life path. And
Yes.
you did you complete all your contracts that you had in this lifetime, or
I
still
don't
working
think
on
we
some of
ever
those?
complete all our contracts. It's a wonderful question. I I actually did learn in a past life regression session because I have my own sessions once a year. I think that's a great thing for any past life regressionist to do. Be on both sides of it. And I did learn that all the important ones I had completed. So of course, new ones just came in. And again, we have options, and we've got a lot of free will in that. But it's not like there's not more to learn and to enjoy and progress. But yes, more just came in.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's always like an evolution.
Yes,
I don't think it
exactly.
ever stops. Yeah. Now, what is
Exactly.
a takeaway that you would like to share with the audience about your experience?
The takeaway I'd like to share is we are so loved and supported, and we're absolutely able to ask for help and just beautifully balance that also with going within. And I think having our own daily spiritual practice, whatever that might be, it doesn't have to be meditation, it might be yoga, it might be journaling, it might be prayer, it might be walking in the woods, whatever it is that just clears our energy and gets us grounded and calms down that busy brain. Because a lot of us have mind chatter, and just that allows us to hear the whisper of our soul so much better, and to just tune into our higher self and into that beautiful wisdom so much better. and it's just life gets so much more flowy, and we can just see the synchronicities and just enjoy those. And they're just confirmation we're on the right path, we're on the right path, we're on the right path when we
Mm,
see those.
yeah, beautiful. Now, if somebody wanted to get a session with you, where would they find you and what do you offer?
Via my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com. And I offer a package of three sessions. The first one's a deep dive. It's 2.5 hours, followed by a 1 hour and a 1 hour to do that beautiful, beautiful work and free up what's not serving you from the past. And it could be things from earlier in this lifetime too. Or people can just more stick their toe in the water and do a 1 hour single jumpstart session where we're just very laser focused on what's the one health or wealth or relationship or whatever issue is the most challenging for them at that time. And I also have a podcast with my wonderful co-host, and that's wakingupspiritually.com. And then my books are available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing and for joining us here today for this amazing conversation.
Oh, thank you, Laura. I so appreciate you and who you are. Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
me as your guest.
You're welcome.